Grey Merchant of Asphodel is a Rhino. Let me explain. Siege Rhino, Abzan Classic, is a creature that drains opponents on enter, and we're getting a new Skirmish Rhino in Tarkir Dragonstorm coming in just a few weeks. We also got Debris Beetle, a vehicle that drains opponents on enters in Aetherdrift. And you know what kind of beetles there are? Rhino beetles. So, this kind of creature, ones that enter and drain opponents, are rhinos, making Grey Merchant of Asphodel a rhino, ipso facto. And it's this little tidbit that has me working backwards on a new deck. Much in the vein of my Brudiclad deck linked up top, I wanted to work backwards from a concept on a deck. In this case, my love for winning with non-combat damage. I love not having to go to attacks, not overcommitting yourself and leaving yourself open for a crackback, and winning gradually over time in a death by 1,000 cuts approach. Let me know in the comments and drop me a like if you're a fan of winning without attacking too. So I thought to myself, how about I pack a deck full of creatures that drain on enters? We have 3 actual rhinos that fit the bill here, along with Grey Merchant of Asphodel, arguably the biggest and best of them all, along with smaller ones like Vampire Spawn or Glide Dive Duo that can fit the same kind of mold here, giving me plenty of options and filling the deck with ways to drain opponents multiple times each turn. This means I want cards in the deck that enhance this game plan first. Totally understanding that dealing 2 damage to each opponent isn't a fast way to win, how do we ramp that up? These are all enters effects, so Panharmonicon and Elish Norn, Mother of Machines, are ways to immediately double up effectiveness. Preston the Vanisher is another way, as blinking a creature creates us a 0/1 copy of that creature with the same enters effects. But unfortunately, this doubling of enters effects is in Blue's wheelhouse, not Abzan's, so we won't get Virtue of Knowledge or Fractured Realm or Yarok to help us even further. But if those are the only enhancers to this strategy, how do we make it work? Volume. We need to be getting the enters effects of these creatures each turn multiple times each turn to really put some pressure on, so Teleportation Circle, Eternal Wanderer, and Conjurer's Closet are all must-haves, at least 1 ensured blink on each of our turns. That's White's strength in this deck, Blink. Ephemerate, Cloud Shift, and Charming Prince all help us get more and more of these enters effects, turning a drain for 3 into a drain for 9 in a single turn. Emiel the Blessed is a good repeatable source of single target blink too. As long as we have 3 mana, we can blink a creature of our choice on demand, and maybe even put counters on it too. Since we're in green, we can ramp quickly, and this can turn into 2 blinks a turn, even if you have no cards in hand. We can go wide with blink as well. Eerie Interlude, Lae'zel's Acrobatics, and Semester's End all blink each of our creatures, meaning having 2 or 3 of these creatures in play can be draining an opponent for 10 or more life in a single cast. I also think the entirely ignored Another Round from Outlaws gets a spot in the deck. For a base 3 mana, it blinks any number of our creatures and can scale with our mana generation for more and more blink repeatedly. With just a Grey Merchant on board, this can be game over in a single cast. And Sword of Hearth and Home is another source of repeatable blink too, with the caveat of the equipped creature needing to connect with an opponent. Thanks to Pro Green and Pro White, Sword of Blink and Ramp here gets us a game changer. If we're blinking as a game plan, then Ketramos the New Dawn definitely deserves a spot in the list, as they end up being a big draw engine, a great new addition to the deck that synergizes when we blink a target on our turns. But blink isn't the only game plan we have at our disposal. Black gives us another viable option for getting these triggers repeatedly, Reanimator. We can use any number of tactics to get these cards into the yard, like milling them with a Stitcher's Supplier, or Stinkweed Imp, or Golgari Grave Troll, or we can tutor them directly to the yard via a Buried Alive, Entomb, or Unmarked Grave. This way we can always have some way to get our game plan online, and can get our rhinos into the yard in order to victimize them back for some big drain action. We could also be returning them to our hand and recasting them with an Oversold Cemetery, since the deck contains nearly 30 creatures. Having 4 in the yard on our upkeep is easy mode. Or we could be using Persist to get them back, or any number of reanimation spells. If we can control when creatures die, like with an Ashnod's Altar, Phyrexian Altar, or Altar of Dementia, then we can control when we get to reanimate them and how often. A Luminous Broodmoth and any altar can be getting us these triggers multiple times. Sacrifice a Rhino to an altar, it comes back with a flying counter and triggers. Blink it to reset the flying counter and it triggers, then sacrifice it again to get it to trigger again. Even our smallest drain effects can go off 3 or more times a turn with a simple setup like this. And all of that makes the choice of our commander a little bit more clear. Since we don't have a dedicated blinking commander in Abzan yet, I want a commander for this deck that helps at least recast creatures from our yard, and that's where the classic Carador Ghost Chieftain comes in. This 8 mana 3/4 Centaur Spirit reads, this spell costs 1 less to cast for each creature card in your graveyard. Once during each of your turns, you may cast a creature spell from your graveyard. And that's why he fits so well. A lost creature is never truly lost. Not only does Carador discount himself and his commander tax to the point where he could potentially always cost 3 mana, but we can entomb or sacrifice and recast a Rhino every turn. Triggers on triggers. The nuts and bolts of the deck need to synergize with the rest of our list. Card draw that triggers on enters like Guardian Project and the Great Henge mean that blinking or reanimating a target gets us card advantage on top of, well, every other advantage. And since we're gaining so much life from these Rhino effects, a Sylvan Library or Toxic Deluge will barely put a dent in our life totals. 0 downsides to them. Now, a nasty little trick here with board wipes. Thanks to effects that exile your whole board like Eerie Interlude, Lae'zel's Acrobatics, or Semester's End, that return creatures at the end of your turn, you can exile your whole board, then cast a wipe like Wrath of God, Dam, or Toxic Deluge, and make it entirely one-sided. Be careful, your opponents may not appreciate how cool of a move that really is though. And while I've built my list as a bracket 2 deck with no game changers and minimal tutors, making this list more streamlined and effective with better tutors, Bolas's Citadel, and Survival of the Fittest would push this deck to a much more tuned and streamlined version. Try not to rely too heavily on Grey Merchants though. What do you think of this concept? Sort of the pacifist's route to victory in Commander. How would you build this deck concept? If you've got something similar, drop your deck list in the comments. And if you want to see my deck, check it out linked in the description at my sponsor, MOXFIELD. MOXFIELD is the best deck building platform in the world and makes it easy to build decks to specific brackets thanks to their built-in automated bracket detection tools. Never misjudge your decks again, and be sure to follow my profile to never miss any of my brews. If you want to pick up any of the cards for this list, be sure to go to Card Trader. Use my promo code MECHANIC now for 5% off your orders from any TCG. Card Trader's zero system means you can get cards from all over the world with only 1 shipping fee. Save money and time today. And if you want to sell off your cards, whether they be unused or just duplicates, go to Card Conduit. If you're selling out of anything from Pokemon to Star Wars to Magic, get premium rates for your cards. Ship them unsorted today and get a check in the mail. If you were inspired to brew, you have to hit that subscribe button. Be a gem and check out some of the other videos on the channel right now too. And as always, good luck and have fun!